tell any secrets of the Mao Mao, this oath will kill me. If I am called in the night and refuse to come, this oath will kill me. If I see anyone steal white man's property, I must help him. I must hide what he gives me and say nothing, or this oath will kill me.
The whole system in this country, the economic system, is such that jobs are scarce. Automation is limiting jobs. It's decreasing jobs. And as automation eliminates the job opportunities, legislation will not create job opportunities. All it will do is bring about friction and hostility between the two races.
You see, there will be no progressive revival if black folks are not deeply involved in it.
I will obey all orders of the Mao Mao, or this oath will kill me.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Mao Mao Hour with the one and only Pascal Robert. We have an action-packed hour here for you guys. Just so you know, for those watching on the rewatch a little later this evening, this is not live. It is only live for patrons, and we will have a call-in once Pascal basically reads his essay on what he wants to talk about today, and you can respond back. Want to hear your feedback. We want to interact with you. Pascal specifically wants to interact with people. Let me bring in the crew as usual. Moderator extraordinaire, show producer extraordinaire, the faceless voice of reason extraordinaire. Please welcome him, Toussaint.
Hello. Good to be here.
This is a big day. The co-pilot of the ship, the longest tenured member of the TIR crew, Pascal Robert is back after a bit of a hiatus.
Yep.
He shined on the Katie Halper show. If you have not watched that, please watch Pascal's performance, if you will, appearance on the Katie Halper show. I was just a featured guest at that point. That was kind of getting you guys ready for what is tonight. So please welcome, he is my co-host, my homie, my dog. He is the man of the Mao Mao Hour. You've all been waiting for his return. Please welcome the Pascal Robert.
Peace and greetings to the audience. Peace and greetings to the chat. Peace and greetings, friends and comrades, and maybe some enemies. Peace and greetings to Jason Miles. Peace and greetings to M. Toussaint. And thank you for the This Is Revolution team, comrades, admirers, contributors on Patreon, subscribers via YouTube, for inquiring about me, my health, my condition, and how I was doing. I was definitely basically suffering from a lack of sunshine and good vitamin D to the point where mobility was kind of difficulty for me. I'm recovering from that right now. Thank you. And I want you guys to know that, being on this show for me is a part of something that helps me feel good. It's also something that helps me feel like I'm contributing to the political education of our society as a part of just being a spectator. So I want you to know that you all are as an important part of the This Is Revolution family to me, as much as I am an important part, if you believe I am, of fulfilling your role as someone who talks to you about politics and world affairs of what's going on today. So I want to say I'm very happy to be back on track here with my This Is Revolution team, Jason Miles and M. Toussaint. And I'm happy to be here and hopefully be able to contribute more consistently in a way that is good for all of us in the future of our show and program. But to get to the subject matter of this show today, shout out to everyone in the chat. I see you all. I acknowledge you all. Shirley, Bernie Worrell, Mark Owen, again Shirley. Shirley's up and down in the timeline. Much, much love to you, Shirley. JC Fire, Jeff, I see you as well. Let me just sum up today's program for you with a little bit of an essay I wrote to talk about Black entertainers and athletes in Black politics. Since the recent deaths of Harry Belafonte and Jim Brown, there has been a reminiscence in the minds of some observers of Black political phenomena in America of the righteous militant Black entertainers and spokesmen who filled the images of the 60s and early 70s. Realizing that Harry Belafonte was a lieutenant in Martin Luther King's army of Black pop cultural figures, marshaled to help influence American conscience in favor of the civil rights movement, it becomes easier for those in today's age of hip hop celebrities and Real Housewives relevance to yearn for the days when honorable and noble figures like Belafonte, who fulfilled all the desired images of Black masculinity within the confines of the normative expectations of the era, were considered spokesmen for the movement. Furthermore, when the contemporary voices in Black spaces of discourse focus on the increased acceptance for alternative gender and sexual orientation expression by Black people in varying communities, the appeal of the classical athletic masculinity and sexuality of Jim Brown becomes even more desirable, considering Black communities still have higher rates of church participation than others in the United States. Hence, the attended conservatism around sexual lifestyle question behaviors becomes somewhat more understandable. The real question becomes, is it ever really healthy for Black political movements or Black political actors to use Black culture, Black pop culture figures or athletes to promote their political ends in an American capitalist society so rooted in reducing Black people to spectacle, but also using Black popular culture to facilitate the exegesis of international capitalism? These are the questions we will ask tonight on our Mao Mao Hour. So that's what we're talking about. What really made me come to this position is that I understand how, when we look at today's quote unquote hip hop figures and pop culture figures who seem kind of quote unquote buffoonish and coonish in their lack of revelry lack of reverence, I should say, excuse me, for the conditions of the communities they claim to speak for, uh, it becomes very, very hard for us to reconcile how did we go from Jim Brown standing with Muhammad Ali and Harry Belafonte started, standing with MLK, to people like Charlemagne the God or other figures in pop culture that we have today, or other athletes, or even LeBron James wearing a Black Lives Matter T-shirt, seeming as if they're really doing or sacrificing something on behalf of the movement. Did we lose something between that moment and today? Well, the question that I would like to ask is that why do we actually expect or believe that it's the role of the Black entertainer or pop culture figure to ever be an intermediary for Black politics in the first place? And where does this model come from? One of the things I think that we should look for and look to specifically is what exactly was the relationship to Harry Belafonte, Sidney Poitier, and those actors of that era to the actual power structure that they claim to be quote unquote opposing. Because if you really think about it, how much in opposition to the status quo could Harry Belafonte, who I really respected and admired and still do, be to the status quo forces if he has enough sway that he can contact the Kennedy administration and ask them to help get Martin Luther King removed from a Georgia prison? Doesn't that mean somewhat that Harry Belafonte has to be considered to be within the accepted purview of what is considered one of the good ones that we can work with? Do we really believe that Paul Robeson, who had been under the investigation of the House Un-American Affairs Activity and Commission, was being interrogated for being a communist, though he was a mentor to Robeson, at that time could have been used and dispatched for those services? The point that I'm trying to convey here is that the media personalities within the context of the civil rights movement that were dispatched to fulfill that movement still had to exist within the context of a Cold War exegesis. Again, there's a great book called Cold War Civil Rights that if you read that book, it discusses how the Cold War movement, but the civil rights movement going from Brown v. Board of Education onward, was about the fact that the United States was trying to improve its image abroad in the face of the increasing popularity of Soviet communism in the global South, particularly Africa, and that the Jim Crow segregationist image of the U.S. in the black and brown global South was a barrier to the ability of global American international capitalism to spread in those thoroughfares where it had to compete with Soviet communism. So as a result, one of the realizations of American domestic intelligence agencies is that they had to write amicus curiae briefs on these Supreme Court cases of desegregation because they realized, going back to the rise of Nazis, that this is a bad look for America to be trying to fight fascism as well as trying to increase the image of America abroad while having this Jim Crow system. Not to diminish the fact that the rise of mechanized farming was making Jim Crow an economic obsolete system as well, because sharecropper labor began to be less useful in a system that had technological labor of mechanized machines that could crop the cotton fields, as opposed to having Americans in black American individuals picking that cotton. So a combination of a variety of events made that traditional system unnecessary and unwarranted. If you figure that and you understand that, you realize why someone who was a black entertainer who was as respected as, say, Paul Robeson, who was an overt communist and admirer of the Soviet Union, could have never been used by the Kennedy administration as an emissary of Martin Luther King to speak on behalf of King's freedom, even though Paul Robeson was a long-time advocate of civil rights and human rights for Black Americans. Why? Because Paul Robeson was an open communist who supported Black liberation well before Belafonte and Sidney Poitier were even in the scene, but because of his politics, caused a great problem for the U.S. domestically and internationally, and would have never been accepted. So the larger point that I'm trying to explain is that even the admirable and beloved Harry Belafonte was acceptable within a certain purview of American politics that made him have the capacity of its ability to be accepted as an intermediary for the civil rights movement. That's good. Thank you, M. Tucson. Cold War Civil Rights, Race and the Images of America by American Democracy by Mary L. Dudziak. That, for those fans who are TIR fans, that's a must-read book on the TIR book reading list. Cold War Civil Rights, Race and the Image of American Democracy by Mary L. Dudziak. You cannot be a fan of TIR and not understand the basic argument that part of the utility of the civil rights movement was to fulfill the Cold War political exegesis of the United States in competition with Soviet communism in the global South. Must-read book, gotta get it. So that explains the point that I'm trying to make, that we should no more be willing to condemn the chicanery of the contemporary Real Housewives of Atlanta, as well as, I guess you should say, hip hop bourgeoisie figures who are trying to be spokesmen of the race, we should be no more willing to condemn them as we are willing to openly accept Sidney Poitier, Harry Belafonte, and Jim Brown as some kind of wonderful, amazing, barometers of the greatness of all that is black and wonderful. Because let's move on to Jim Brown. Jim Brown could be considered to be the embodiment of the black nationalist version of Belafonte, where he was talking about black business expansion, own communities, discourse that is very, very common today. And then in the minds of today's society, there are many people who would think, oh, that's radical, that's revolutionary. As a matter of fact, we have a clip that hopefully Jason has queued up of Jim Brown in 1989 talking about his biography, where he talks about how he's been fighting for black liberation since 1967. And in 1967, he got a Ford Foundation grant. And he was giving millions to people in the hood. He had a brother with a Harvard MBA, developing business plan. What was funny to me about that scene that hopefully Jason can cue up for us right now is that if you read Karen Ferguson's Top Down, another good book that This Is Revolution fans should have in their arsenal, Top Down by Karen Ferguson, discusses how the Ford Foundation used black nationalism and black self-help through financing it as a way to socially engineer black nationalist politics at the behest of the lords of capitalism and the ruling class. So it wasn't only just a traditional, we shall overcome, quote unquote, integrationists that are always lambasted for taking the white man's money that were getting played, as the radical nationalists used to say. It was the nationalists themselves, as Jim Brown is patting himself on the back for getting Ford Foundation money. Well, what Karen Ferguson exposes in Top Down is like, guess what, folks? This was a strategy the Ford Foundation put out to socially manage you guys, to keep you as controlled opposition, not because they wanted you to do anything revolutionary or radical. And you will see the list of all types of gloriously heralded plans that we still look up to this day, that come out of the 60s and 70s, that the Ford Foundation was financing black arts movements, black theater groups, all types of blackety self-improvement plans that they were financing to socially control Negroes, not empower Negroes. So the stereotypical notion that, like, yeah, it was those civil rights integrationists that got played, they got bought out, the man was paying them off. You hear that kind of jibbity-jabber nonsense all the time today in black political discourse of those people who posture as radical and nationalist, when at the same time the Ford Foundation was slipping those Negroes bucks back and forth, up and down, all day, all the time, night and day, just as well. But so, in other words, who was really getting played? So the question becomes, when you have a race first or a race agenda that's based on black first, whether it be integrationist or nationalist, as Preston Smith so eloquently exposes in his books Racial Democracy in a Black Metropolis, all that's going to happen is you're going to have black brokers negotiate on the behalf of the majority of black people who are poor and working class to get their fat back and biscuits patronage in the name of, we got to stick together as a race because the man is against us, while they're both getting paid on both sides of their mouths to play the black folks are oppressed hustle. Instead of talking about, well, we need to talk about finding a way of maintaining our ideological integrity to our class and economic issues while having a cross-racial alliance with Latinos, whites, and other ethnic groups where we can work together to challenge the system. But no, we can't do that because we have to work independently and find a pace for our own. We are nationalists as a people that are getting Ford Foundation money to back our initiatives because I'm into black liberation.
Do you want to play the clip or?
Yeah, please, let's play that clip.
I'm Tony Brown. I'll be back in a moment with Jim Brown, Out of Bounds. Join me in welcoming Jim Brown, sports legend, actor, and author. No matter what anybody thinks of you, this is what you are. And your bottom line is that at this stage and age of your life, your primary mission is to express yourself as you want and to fight for black liberation. Is that pretty accurate?
No doubt about it. You see, the book has given me a tremendous platform because it shocks people. You know, it tells them so many different things about my life because people have been lazy about me. They took one story about throwing a girl out of a balcony and continuing stories that was put out by the government. But what most of you don't know is I've worked for black liberation all my life. In 1968, I had an organization called the Black Economic Union, which got a grant of over $1 million from the Ford Foundation, and it was totally black controlled, black MBAs from across the country. In fact, my executive vice president was a graduate of Harvard, magna cum laude, who left Corning Glass to come to Cleveland to deal with us. We went to Mississippi, adopted Marshall County. We started Magnificent Products, which was the first black hairspray company. We managed Earth, Wind & Fire, the Friends of Distinction, started New Breed Industries. We started the first company in Maine about that handling ancillary rights to Muhammad Ali. You don't know these things. My existence and the reason you have seen me in such a light is because the government do not want a black man to tell you how to use your dollars because you have not used your dollars correctly. And I'll say something. See, a part of my message, they kill revolutionaries. That's right. And they project the OJs and the Dr. Js to you, and you said it's so nice. And it is nice because these are nice people. But these are not people that are going to bring change so that you empower yourself. See, and until you empower yourself, you'll always be high-class slaves.
Empower yourself with that Ford Foundation money that was planted to help demobilize you from any kind of real black liberation that you think you're actually doing.
I've watched that clip a few times as I had to make the little video edit, and I thought it was funny how he starts it. Like, everybody heard a story about me throwing some woman off a balcony, but she's fine. That's a sturdy bitch. I don't know why you guys over there complaining. Thought that was funny.
Oh my God.
It's black capitalism, man. He's talking about how black capitalism is going to let us free because I got Negroes from Harvard to come in there to get that Ford Foundation money that was doing CIA work in Vietnam anyway. But this is good. There's a black man's doing it because this is good. Yeah.
Is his shirt see-through on that?
I think it was just a tough time for him right there. You look real cokey in that clip.
By the way, for our audience who is not familiar with the Black Affairs TV show that Jason and I first talked about when we did our first episode, Tony Brown's Journal is an example of one of those Black Affairs TV shows that you would see from the late 60s, early 70s in various black communities that would talk about black political affairs every Sunday. I think Tony Brown was on PBS, and you would see he was one of these they were not bad shows, but you understand the perspective they were coming from.
I mean, that was also kind of the moment, and the sad part is, and I think this is what we talk about on this show in general a lot, is the fact that a lot of people are still stuck in the past, and this was a sentiment that we heard a lot in the 80s. I mean, that clip is from 1989. Jim Brown did a lot of work in Los Angeles, where I believe he ended up passing away in Los Angeles with gangs and with young men, and definitely young men dealing with violence. And let's not, I don't want to make light of his violent past. We all are allowed to mature and change, and
no doubt.
And I do, but I'm a big believer in forgiveness. Excuse me. But his message never, wavered of black capitalism. That was his message in the mid 80s, as he felt that he was held out of Hollywood, as they had kind of moved past certain stars of the, now we call it the black exploitation era. So his frustration, I think, comes from like a real place.
Yeah, I'm not trying to down Jim Brown. I think Jim Brown did some work he did that was good, working with black youth to try to get them out of violence and gang. Well, yeah, my goal is not to tear him down. I mean, I think, first of all, Jim Brown was a phenomenal athlete. You can't deny that. And second of all, he did try to dissuade youth from gang activity and criminal activity and things of that nature. That's admirable. But I'm just talking about his message of what he thought was revolutionary, which is nationalism. It's not it's black capitalism.
Yeah.
With a kente cloth hat, which that's all it is.
I mean, that's all these guys were, ultimately. I don't think they really had a vision outside of that. And I think that's why that movement is so vehemently anti Marxist, communist, socialist, because those are visions about worker empowerment. And worker empowerment is, of course, antithetical to, one guy owns everybody.
Whenever I see those cats make those arguments, we were going to start black businesses, and tell me why it feels good to have a black business denying a black worker union rights instead of a white business, or denying a black worker health care instead of a white business, or denying a black worker overtime instead of a white business. Why is that better? Why is it better to have your capitalist oppressor look like you than to be a white man? Like, what's empowering about that?
Because it's you.
It's,
and if
you
you play
can
your cards
imagine
right,
it's a piece of you. Yeah.
you play your cards right, it could be you. That person's supposed to be nicer than you.
Yeah, and what's often overlooked is that oftentimes because they're black, they have less capital and they're more likely to deny you the benefits you want.
Well, maybe, but I mean, I hate to use that term, devil's advocate. I mean, this guy is coming out of, the harsh Jim Crow South into a racist North that might not look exactly like where he's coming from, but it's still pretty bad. He's one of the early black stars of the NFL. Of course, the NFL existed for years before Jim Brown, decades before Jim Brown, but he does dominate the league. He also dominates a sport. I believe to this day, he still holds the majority of the records in the sport of lacrosse. And you're talking about records now that are close to like 60, 70 years old that he owns. But his mission in life was kind of the typical capitalist mission, and we missed that somewhere in the analysis of Jim Brown, because he does also come from the days of segregated hotels from players. There's a movie that's a fictional story of a meeting between him, Malcolm X, and Muhammad Ali, and
I remember that movie.
I didn't like it at all. The guy that played Obama was like, or Obama, I'm sorry, the guy that played Malcolm X
was Obama-esque.
Obama X. It was like the worst.
One night in Miami.
But apparently the beginning of that movie is in Jim Brown's book. It's a real story that he tells, where I forget if that guy was an owner of a team or a booster when he was in college or even in high school, and he's quitting the league because he's going to go star in movies, and he's talking to the guy, and he won't let him in the house because he's like, I told you, Jim, there's no niggas in the house, like even you. And so I get where those guys are coming from. I don't agree with it, but I get it. In 2023, and you're still talking like it's 1968, and you're walking out of the Jim Crow South, I don't necessarily agree with those dudes. I don't understand their aggrievement to that same level. I want to know the world in which they exist.
I think that I'm not really even willing to give them that much grace at that time, because there were black people who were before them, who were from those circumstances, who had better politics on those issues and didn't buy into that black capitalist nonsense, who were from the South, who were black sharecropper workers, who were black industrialists, who were black socialists or communists, who were like, what the hell is a black capitalist going to be doing for me in a system that's overall capitalist besides exploit me with brown skin?
I mean, you're right. I'm not saying you're wrong. There's no disagreement here.
So the question that we ultimately want to have is that, is there any real benefit to the black celebrity advocate overall in an overall capitalist society, in which usually the one's going to be picked is going to be within the purview of what his utility is to the ruling class anyway? Do you guys want to answer that? Should we take it to the phones? We are to our last.
Let's let everybody know the phone lines definitely are open. Tucson, if you haven't let people know, in the chat. Let them know. 626-873-8658. That is 626-873-8658. The phone lines are open. They're going to open them up for a little bit longer. I mean, I'd like to get your opinion on this. Excuse me. The athlete of the past is from another era, right? There were certain things they were literally trying to fight for. You're talking about guys that are staying in segregated hotels. Jim Brown comes out of that era, right? Now the athlete of the present is all about he is brand or she is brand. And we're starting it at such a very young age with the new NIL where you can get paid in college. And you're working on your brand. When you hear these guys talk nowadays, it's no longer, oh my God, it's no longer all about, sorry, a call came through, but not for the show. It's no longer about, how they're going to F off their money, but it's how they're going to flip their money and turn this over and work on their brand. It's no longer just a shoe deal. It is, how can I take my name and put it on a million different things? I think LeBron James is the perfect example of this. Athlete is no longer just athlete. I'm athlete, ambassador, movie mogul. And he took that chance to go play for the Lakers, not to win more championships, but to get himself closer to a certain kind of power. That school he has in, I believe, Akron, where he's from, where there's a bureaucrat in there to help, poor kids' parents navigate social services. There's a washer and dryer in there. The kids can wash their clothes and food for them to eat if they haven't had a meal. But it wasn't like he was trying to replicate that and make that a model for more public schools. He's not even advocating for that. It's just his personal brand. And I think there is something interesting about celebrities today and how they brand themselves that are a little different, where maybe Jim Brown is kind of the model to a certain degree of social work. The Charles Barkley, I'm not your role model, seems to be kind of a dead scene when it comes to athletes. I'd just like to get your opinion on that.
That's a very part. I mean, I agree with you that is the new model, right? And my question is, who does it work for? Does it work for the so-called constituencies that these men are allegedly advocating for, or does it work for their bottom line in terms of giving them credibility with those constituencies and their ability to buy more of their products?
I mean, Colin Kaepernick comes to mind. I know a lot of people probably would disagree. I don't really know how people feel about that, nor do I care. I think that he's a complex figure. I will not call him one of these people because he did lose his playing career for a belief. I do think he started to make the kneeling, sitting, let's remember before there was kneeling, it was just him sitting out the anthem when he was actually injured. So it wasn't even that big of a deal. It was just kind of a slow sports day. And that story just happened to catch crazy fire. And then that turns into kneeling after he meets with a Green Beret, a wounded veteran, to ask how should he protest and not be disrespectful, which I find kind of counter to the protest and I don't get it, but it does speak to, I think, the mind of the athlete. You're trying to please everybody at the same time. You're trying to please your constituents. You're trying to please ownership and advertisers. And it worked to some degree with Nike. He was able to, even though he lost his living as a ball player, he was able to get, millions of dollars through endorsement through Nike.
No, absolutely. That's a good point. It worked in terms of on his benefit, but did it stop the police abuse of black and brown citizens to, death by cop.
The conversation went away from that. If you really think about what happened, and that's my problem with what became of the kneeling, it was more about him, excuse me, and the few players that were kneeling, and less about the cause. And it's more about, oh, the NFL kicked Colin Kaepernick out, or they're consolidating power to make sure that he doesn't play. And I believe that. I really believe that there was collusion to keep him out of the league. And he's not the only player that's ever been colluded against, and it doesn't always have to be for reasons of protest. But ultimately, it's the story is about him. It's never about what he was mad about.
No doubt. Tucson, do you have any thoughts on this subject matter?
I have a few. I generally think it's a terrible idea for us to vest a lot of hope in entertainers for expressing the political will of the people. They have different interests.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems obvious, but there are still people who want Jay-Z and Beyonce to act a certain way. They want them to preach a certain message. And it's almost a despair. Like, this black nationalist message has to get out. We need the famous people. We need them. They need to be on the same page as us. And it's never going to happen.
Or they'll pretend that they are, and it really ends up having basically class enemies being the voice of the masses.
It sounds horrible, but yes, it's exactly what's going to happen.
It's just also funny because you're also talking about people that are kind of disconnected at a certain point to a certain segment of the population. And a lot of that is out of necessity. If you're gajillionaire Steph Curry, for example, you really can't go cavorting around town
in the hood,
hanging out with the everyman, because especially in Oakland, if no one's trying to rob you, everybody's trying to get something from you. So how do you get kind of genuine relationships with people at a certain point, right? So it's kind of foolish to assume that these cats, even if they came from humble beginnings, because their answer to everything is going to be charity.
Yep.
My mom was a single mom, and we grew up poor, so I'm going to build houses for single moms. Are you going to, vote for rent control? Why would I do that? I'm also a large landlord. So, it's charity is always the answer. We do have a call.
We do have a call.
Caller, what is your name and where you calling from? Oh,
my name is Shirley.
Oh,
I'm from Indianapolis.
Coming in hot.
That's right. Welcome back, Pascal. You were missed.
Thank you so much, Shirley. I appreciate you.
We appreciate you. So I'm just so happy you're back, and I definitely had to tune into Mau Mau to watch you. But let me just get to my point about the subject at hand.
Sure.
So I think it does a disservice, especially with the celebrities of this day and age, when they wade into issues of politics, because most of them are ill-informed. They have conflicts of interest, and it's like I think you guys already said it. You're using an op to speak on behalf of the masses. And I remember a few years ago when Harry Belafonte, he just did a mild critique of Jay-Z, and Jay-Z got so bent out of shape, and it was like how is he going to criticize me? And I think Harry Belafonte had said something, praising something that Bruce Springsteen had done. And Jay-Z took such great offense to it. But remember, Jay-Z's the same person who went to the NFL and said, we're past kneeling. So again, you can't trust these people to do the bidding or speak on behalf of Black people. And I wish people wouldn't expect them to. I just, just stick to entertaining and maybe give money to some causes. That's the best thing you can do, because when they try to wade into other things, I think, sometimes embarrass themselves, and they are made to look like fools, at least in my opinion. But I'm not really big on celebrity for the sake of it. So that's what I have to say. Again, welcome back, Pascal. You were missed. I'm not going to try to hog all of your time, but just take care of yourself, okay?
All right. Thank you so much for your concern, Shirley.
Thank you, Pascal.
All right. Thanks, you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye. Shirley says, shut up and dribble.
Basically, Shirley told LeBron James and Jay-Z to shut up and dribble. I find that fucking hilarious. That is hilarious. Well, hey, Jay-Z, shut up and rap. Coon.
Shut up and rap.
I would have been more interested to hear does Shirley have the same feelings about the glorious entertainers and athletes of old that we always wax rhapsodic about in terms of their roles of the movement, like Harry Belafonte and Sidney. Like Harry Belafonte had the credibility to criticize Jay-Z because people were like, "Oh, he's the OG of the entertainers." He was with MLK and blah blah blah. What do we think Paul Robeson would be saying about Harry? Doing all those blaxploitation movies in the 70s. Like, come on, man, you talking all that like I'm risking bullets with MLK in '61. Now you talking about bucking the preacher? What's up?
What was the movie that Fred Williamson was in?
Three the Hard Way.
No, that was Jim Brown. Remember, Fred Williamson might have been in
Fred
that.
Williamson and Jim Brown went through the Hard
Fred
Way.
Williamson was in a movie like Nigga Jim. This is the legend of Nigga Jim or something, or Nigga Charlie.
Nigga Charlie.
My Lord.
When it got there, it's like, man, yeah, what would Paul Robeson have said? Nigga Charlie, huh? Interesting. Then he would have went back to exile.
Not to say that there were questions about some of the roles that Paul Robeson was taking in his lifetime as well, because there was some, because he was before the great. Remember, Jason, the Great Transformation, where we're going from Sambo and Chitlin Circuit to the noble, striving Black man of Sydney and Harry, and it's like, strong chin, no facial hair.
I mean, he also plays Othello. Right?
He does play Othello. That's true.
Let's remember he's also kind of a more famous stage actor than he is a film actor.
Singing great classical operas.
Yeah, he's kind of could get in where he fit in, and he definitely fit in better in Europe, sadly, than he did in the U.S. But,
no doubt about it. I mean, I love Paul Robeson. He's my favorite member of my fraternity. He's one of my frat brothers.
He's also one of the first stars of the NFL, the first Black stars.
That's correct. That's correct. Three-letter man was like the famous athlete, scholar. We went to Columbia Law School because of racism. Decided not to practice law. His father was a pastor. He was an amazing cat, and was persecuted towards the end of his life because of politics.
He was a high value man.
Oh my gosh. Where do you come with that?
I totally blame Pascal for that stuff appearing on my Instagram timeline. And I love all of it.
Yeah.
Anytime I see someone talking about high value men or women and how to treat your man or woman, those are my new favorite videos of all time.
Yep.
It's all your fault, Pascal.
Oh, why? Because I was the one who introduced you to
because I don't care about that shit. And he was like, you guys see this video. Kevin Samuels said this. And you nigga said just, I'm like, why do I get it? Basically, Kevin Samuels to me is nigga Charlie in a suit.
Nice.
Got a nice suit though. You can't admit. Cat had nice, tight attire.
Gotta admit, give him his props.
The attire was tight though.
He just was just yell at women. I don't even understand why these women would call him. I don't get it. I don't get it. But man,
It was funny as hell, though, man. I'm not gonna lie. It's tragic, but I mean, I was just like, dude, you 55-year-old, you straight Cialis age ass dude, screaming at these women, talking about you watch.
That's the. But is that the next step of this kind of talk?
I mean,
right?
yeah,
It's all about branding, right? If it's all about branding, then you have to be worthy. So it feels like that is the next step when you're in this world of like black capitalism, is the high value conversation.
Well, he definitely took the black capitalist conversation into the dating realm in an effective way. I mean, let's I hate to say it, but we gotta let's keep it funky for real. Black capitalism has won as a discourse, not as a solution, as a discourse. Come on, man. Are we gonna argue that there's any kind of place where black leftist or socialist thought dominates black thoroughfares of discourse in common black society? Come on, man.
No, because if like next to all that stuff to me exists in the same place, like the Jim Brown uplift talk with the and I think right in that same Venn diagram is the high value talk, and then the financial
literacy stuff.
Financial literacy talk. It's all that stuff is the same thing. And every time I watch it, now I'm starting to see videos of people mocking it, which are hilarious. I don't know if you've seen this one where the guy was like,
Jason,
what you gotta do is you gotta buy a house.
I want to say we never talk about this on this show because everyone thinks like, oh, those guys are just two old broke socialists. But no one asked what was Jason and I doing before the subprime mortgage crash, and how both of us were very successful businessmen owning multiple businesses in the real estate industry before this, making boku cash before the subprime mortgage crash, and realizing that this shit is a capitalist scam.
Yeah, and never wanting to go back. It's fascinating to me, the financial literacy talk, and how people's ears get big because everyone thinks that it's just so easy to make money. And whenever I hear these guys saying now, which I think is really fascinating, is they're taking some of the Bernie Sanders 99%-ish rhetoric, right? Like these rich people are doing X, Y, and Z. And you don't have an opportunity to do X, Y, and Z because you don't have capital. And they'll tell you all the reasons why you don't have capital. And it's a lot of the same shit we say, but then they pivot to the solution.
Right.
You know, which is always what you need to do is when you're working your 15th job, you need to invest $500 a month of that money, you know, into a blah, blah, blah. And it also goes into someone saying the hustle culture that like, which has been going on for probably about 20 years now, more than that, in the kind of the neoliberal era of no longer, you know, third party capital saying we don't need to hire Pascal and Jason. We need to hire third party versions of Pascal and Jason because we don't want to pay them directly. And people's disconnection from the job market. MT and I were having a conversation about this earlier today. When you think about post-Fordist America, it's more of a service economy, and it's also this kind of economy where you kind of have to know everything. Your knowledge, you have to spend your time learning everything because the employers want to hire you already knowing. They don't want to pay to train you anymore.
Nope. And they will not train you.
So every moment you have free, you need to be learning. You need to be bettering yourself. And the Gary V's of the world, you know, will tell you, you know, when I was a poor person that inherited money. I was working all the time. There's any motivational video that will talk about a celebrity, and they'll talk about how that celebrity sacrificed sleep and all these other things to get to this pinnacle. And even when you think about, they made a whole video around Beyonce preparing herself for Coachella, which was kind of a pretty badass performance. But they did talk about, they made it seem like it's just her, right? There's a team of motherfuckers. There's music directors, there's dancers, there's choreographers, there's lighting guys. There's hundreds of people involved in making sure this thing goes off. Those are the people that are literally working 18-hour days. I was there at Coachella working 18-hour days. I know those people, right? Someone died, building the lighting trust there. Beyonce's never going to risk her life building a lighting truss. She's never going to have a harness on, right? But the narrative is, it is through her hard work that she's at the pinnacle. Because look at her sweating in the dance studio. Look at her mommying after she leaves the dance studio. She's a high value woman.
Remember the part where she hit her weight loss goals and Jay-Z was like, okay. Yeah, that's good for you.
and that person that lives this kind of princess-like life, it looks like it's a life that's obtainable to you because she's working just like you should be working. Megan, fuck are you doing, Lashandra? Eating. Beyonce doesn't have time to eat.
Beyonce eats? Who told you that?
No.
Too busy hustling.
She breathes salad. That's all she does. She breathes salad.
She breathes salad.
And on the weekends, Gary Vaynerchuk goes to flea markets and garage sales and buys
his Etsy store, right? His
he
eBay
buys
and Etsy
their
store.
Toys. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a weekend.
What you need to do, sell all of your belongings. You need to have nothing in your house. Then take that money and then buy a house, sell that house.
Right. That's true.
They're always, dude. To me, it's all related. And there's a reason why people feel atomized, because if you're not working, the fuck are you doing? Why do you think people are afraid of AI?
This whole culture is so psychotic, man.
It's true.
It is a frightening reality that you can make a YouTube video with really good lighting and say, hey, do you want to make money not doing anything? And then you have a whole spiel and people will watch it.
Or call yourself a high value man in expensive suits.
That's important.
People will watch it. People will watch it. Did you see what Strom said? Can you read what Strom said, Pascal?
I've never seen a time so blatantly transactional and cynical. It's a great statement.
It's a cold world. It's a cold world.
Cold world.
Somebody asked a question earlier about Dick Gregory. Where does Dick Gregory fit into this?
Dick Gregory was a great stand-up comedian who was very good at making social commentary through stand-up comedy, and I think that he used his art to discuss the issues of the day, and he was good at doing that. I think that when he came to the point of becoming a quote-unquote spokesman for the movement, I mean, he crossed into kind of dicier territory, but I think that his role as using the social affairs of the day as grounds for his comedy was brilliant. I think he was absolutely brilliant. And I think even his advocacy was informed by his ability to make art of the pain of life, which was still brilliant. And there are people who are better at this entertainer spokesman thing than others. I think Harry Belafonte was very good. I think Dick Gregory was very good. I think Paul Robeson, for the time he did do it, was good. But I would make the argument that, I still would not advocate surrendering advocacy politically to entertainers, because the exception does not make the rule.
So you don't want to hear what Ariana Grande has to say about homelessness? Is that what you're telling me?
I'm really not particularly interested.
I wish more people were not particularly interested.
You don't care what Russell Crowe has to say about the plight of immigrant workers?
As a kid, I thought it was cool that Gloria Estefan had political views. It's like, yeah, man, that's as good as it gets. But then I learned more about her political views, and I was like, these are the worst political views I've ever heard of. So easy to get this wrong, I suppose.
Wasn't she vehemently anti-Castro?
Yes,
Vehemently anti-Castro.
Miami Cuban, man. I mean, come on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not all of them are like that. Our good friend Nando Vila is not like that.
That's true.
He's not Cuban.
That's true. He's not Cuban.
What is he?
He's Spanish from Spain.
You sure?
Straight conquistador.
She called him colonizer.
He's a colonizer. Those are his words. He can't claim being Latino. He has to claim being a colonizer.
When I see Nando, probably when I go up for this conference I'm doing, I'm going to remind him of what you said.
You can. He'll be like, oh, she listens to me.
I was like, no, I swear you told me he was Cuban.
I'll call him a colonizer to his face before. You can tell him.
Like, Nando, I swear you told me he was Cuban. Nah, bro.
Nah, bro. No.
And then he hits me with the Vatos Locos por Vida.
Oh, man. That's deep. He's a straight colonizer.
I'm so racist. I just assume he's brownish from Miami, isn't he? Cuban?
Ain't he Cuban? Pretty sure. I thought
there
I heard
are
him say
Latinos from Miami that are not Cuban. There are all kinds of Latinos down here.
That's true.
Yeah, there's Cubans,
No,
and then
there's
what's the one right next to Cuba? Dominicans,
Puerto Ricans.
There's you people that's on the screen right now.
You people.
They got Nicaraguans, they got Ecuadorians, they got all kinds. Venezuelans, they got Mexicans in Miami.
It's hard to find, regular ass black people in Miami.
You got a lot of regular ass black people in Miami too, who are originally from, Bahamas. I mean,
that's what See, Pascal's just so used to being around Haitian.
No, there's a connection between old African Americans who being pre-civil rights blacks and blacks from Bahamas in Miami. A lot of them were actually related to Bahamians.
This is true. In Harlem too.
Harlem World. Well, I told you, Toussaint, that all New York black people are some kind of island black people.
They are not.
It's not totally true, but it's very easy to understand why you would believe that. It's very easy to get that.
You know why I say that? For people that if behind the scenes when we have our conversations, whenever we bring anything up about a black person from New York, Toussaint or Pascal goes, "Oh, you know that person's Haitian." Oh, you know they're Jamaican, right?
It's important to out people
all the time. No matter who dies in Hollywood. Oh, you know they was Haitian, right?
Vince Staples, you know he's Haitian, right?
Is he really?
Half, apparently.
God damn.
Who's that?
Vince Staples, the rapper.
I don't even know who he is.
He sounds like an athlete, right? Sounds like a football player.
I didn't realize Dave from De La Soul was Haitian until you know he was Haitian, right?
Yeah.
His last name was Delicour. That's a French name.
I didn't know his last name. That was Trugoy the Dove.
So De La Soul is a French word.
That's true.
It's a lot of things.
Of the soul.
But
Black
yeah.
medallions, no gold.
No gold. Hanging out with Paz. Hanging out with Mace. Did you enjoy your before we go? Did you enjoy your time on the Katie Halper show yesterday?
I did. I think Katie's very nice. She asked very, very good questions.
Hmm.
But she just totally outed her mom as like having a relationship with her. Married her. Like, Katie, you didn't have to share that.
I feel like I should say. It's like, why do you feel like you should
full of people.
You look at her face, it's like, and my mom was dating.
This hair is curly for a reason, guys.
Talking about that fat pack and biscuits. Yeah. I've seen some of those biscuits. Didn't do the fat back, but the biscuits, yeah.
I made the mistake of reading some of the comments, and my thing is, if you're gonna send something mean, can you at least spell our names right?
Don't worry about the haters, man.
Just spell the name right.
Shake it off. Shake it off.
The Harlem Shake to the
Harlem Shake. I totally would if I had more room. Can you Harlem Shake, Pascal?
Probably if I was standing up and I had more room, I could.
Good answer. Good answer.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
If Pascal tried to Harlem Shake, bam, knee gone.
I like that Harlem Shake.
I had some
Back
cardboard.
on IR. Where'd Pascal? Back on IR. He Harlem Shaked his way back on the injured reserve. He busted his knee and dislocated a hip with one move.
That was
Strong McCallum is talking about African American vernacular English, and I think that might be our cue to go.
What beatbox did he say?
He said, I can't even say it. Tucson, can you say it?
What? There are lots of gullah people in New York.
No, he said something about
New York Southern African American vernacular English.
Yeah.
Okay, if it's New York African American vernacular English, then how is it African American vernacular English? If there's Philly vernacular English, I mean, is it just Philly vernacular English or New York vernacular English?
I don't know. Philly people say wooder.
Wooder.
We should make Paul come. Paul say water.
Philly, they say John.
John.
This is my John, son. This is my John.
John has lasted a long time.
Yeah. The test of time. But is it a part of African American vernacular English? Can a white person say it?
Listen, I'm not even going to get into the discourse on vernacular English, but that's another conversation. That's another mile hour.
This is a white person saying John right now.
Swab, did you take like a PhD dissertation in Black linguistics? He's like, John is derived from joint, as in the joint. This is
because he can only write it because if he says it out loud, they'll fucking beat him up. That's why he can only write it.
Join.
It's messed up, man. It's messed up.
John's like, ask people from Philadelphia to say ferry.
Ferry.
We should just bring Paul on and make him say words. Who do we know from Boston that we can bring on and make say words?
I know some people from Boston.
Paul was making fun of me for calling him Paul.
Paul?
He did Paul make fun of me. Yeah. Because Tucson goes, Paul.
Paul.
Paul. I love the accents on this show. They're so fucking varied.
I try not to out my New York accent. I don't like it.
Really? Because you're doing a horrible job of it. You are from New York.
I really don't like my New York.
You wanna yell at someone right now. Get out of here.
I'm walking here. I'm walking
over here. What is
Don't like it.
That's all he's been saying since he's been back. He's been walking around the suburbs of Florida. I'm walking over here. What is with the sun over here?
All right.
Pascal, say pastrami.
Pastrami. It's not pastrami.
Say sidewalk, Jason. Say sidewalk.
Well, thank you guys very much for hanging with us.
You didn't say it.
Say what?
Sidewalk.
Sidewalk.
Yeah, that's weird.
I thought you were gonna make me say like something really native to where I'm from, but okay.
Sidewalk. It's
Sidewalk.
weird.
How's that weird?
Walk? Like what you cooking?
Look,
That's
you
how you
talking
pronounce
over here. Don't make him say bagel. You know what you shouldn't make me do? Ask these people about pizza.
No. Don't restart the pizza wars.
Don't do it.
Restart it.
Do not ask New Yorkers about pizza.
No.
Pascal, parting words as we getting out of here.
That New York has the best pizza in the universe?
Jesus Christ. That's
It's
all I had
true.
to say.
It's true.
Fuck. That's all I had to say.
Torre thinks Connecticut has good pizza.
Is Tori, what did he just comment?
No, I'm just thinking about
He
Torre
does
trying to
think
argue about
that. He
Connecticut
does
pizza.
think that. Oh God.
New Haven pizza.
Anyone look
I was like,
for those of you that have an opinion about pizza, please leave your opinion in the comments. We want to know who has the best pizza. I am from California. Don't care. But the people on the screen with me care a lot. They will fight me
Carol, a whole
over
lot.
pizza.
Connecticut
know
does
this.
not have pizza. Connecticut has muffins wrapped in saran wrap. That's Connecticut.
And now you know why we can't
For the mile hour,
bring pizza.
we are out.
If I tell any secrets of the Mao Mao, this oath will kill me. If I am called in the night and refuse to come, this oath will kill me. If I see anyone steal white man's property, I must help him. I must hide what he gives me and say nothing, or this oath will kill me.
The whole system in this country, the economic system, is such that jobs are scarce. Automation is limiting jobs. It's decreasing jobs. And as automation eliminates the job opportunities, legislation will not create job opportunities. All it will do is bring about friction and hostility between the two races.
You see, there will be no progressive revival if black folks are not deeply involved in it.
I will obey all orders of the Mao Mao, or this oath